Hey everyone, welcome to the JagTv Sports Podcast. My name is Richard Brinson, and in this podcast, we're going to be recapping some of the sporting events that happened over the weekend, over what was a pretty bad weekend overall for Jags athletics. Had a lot of losses in there, sprinkled in a few wins, but we're also going to preview some of the upcoming games that we're looking forward to. If you have any questions or comments about the podcast, feel free to reach out to us through our Instagram, which is linked below. But for now, let's just get started. And so to begin, we're going to kind of preview some of the sports that haven't started yet, but will start by the time this podcast airs or by the next time we film. And that is going to be the men's and women's golf team, which the men are competing in the Argent Financial Classic in, I'm going to butcher this name, Chaudron, Louisiana. I mean, they got all those French words where it's impossible to say. But that'll be happening Sunday through Tuesday. And then the women are competing in the Tulane Green Wave Invite in New Orleans on Monday and Tuesday. So good luck to those guys and gals as they get their season started. And then tennis, which women's tennis has the Thomasville Invitational this weekend, believe it or not, in Thomasville, Alabama. So if you're in Thomasville, maybe hunting or something, because I'm sure there's not too much to do outside of there, go cheer on the women's tennis team as they get their season kicked off. So that's it for all the sports that haven't already played. Now to kind of recap some of the games that happened over the weekend. Volleyball, they lost to Texas A&M in their opener in 3 sets. And I guess a silver lining for them would be that the first couple sets were actually really competitive. A lot of back and forth. They held strong, but the third set was where A&M, I guess, started to kind of take over and establish a little bit of dominance there. But the offense was led by Meredith O'Gorman, 7 kills, and Aubriana Cannon had 4 total blocks. 3 of them were solo in the loss, and Anna Loberg posted 3 of South's 5 aces. And then I believe it was Friday. I may be wrong on that, but I believe Friday they took on McNeese State and they swept them in 3 straight sets, led offensively by Aubriana Cannon, who finished the match with 5 digs and a solo block. Then Anna Loberg was solid again with 33 assists and helped direct the Jags to 44 kills in the win. She also finished with a pair of aces, 6 digs, and 3 kills. And currently, the volleyball team is in Houston to play Rice, and they're playing right now, which if ESPN Plus was not on commercial, I would be able to give you a score on that, but I'll try to do that later if I can. So, again, they're playing Rice currently, and they play UNLV tomorrow at 1 p.m., and then they travel to Hammond, Louisiana, to play Southeastern, I believe, Tuesday. I'll have to go back and double check that, but I believe that's Tuesday. They play Southeastern in Hammond, Louisiana. So that's all I have for volleyball. We now move on to soccer, who really had a tough weekend as they had to go play Auburn, and they got beat 6-0 or 6-0, I should say, for all those soccer people out there. But again, another silver lining. It was scoreless after the first half, but overall, kind of a theme of the weekend as they played 2 SEC teams. They also lost 1-0 on the road at Mississippi State, but they just couldn't get anything going on offense. Not a lot of shots overall, much less shots on goal. Against Auburn, they were outshot 18-5 with 12 of Auburn's 18 shots being on goal and only 1 of our 5 being on goal. It's hard to win whenever you only put 1 shot on the goal. So that's always a tough battle to win. And then Mississippi State, they were outshot 29-3 with 7 of Mississippi State shots being on goal and only 1 of ours. And kind of a heartbreaking part of it is we held Mississippi State scoreless the entire game, and then they were able to scratch one across in the 89th minute. So tough loss there, but they bounced back quickly. They won earlier today 2-0 against Lamar at the cage with goals from Irene Campo and Monique Gray. I'm sorry, Mrs. Campo, if I mispronounce your name. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. We'll have to have you on the podcast so you can help me out. Also, shout out to Allison Luckhart, our goalie, with a clean sheet. And their next game will be in Cookeville, Tennessee, to play Tennessee Tech. So good luck to them as they keep their season going. Next, we move on to cross country, who had their tune-up race, I believe last Friday. Both the men's and women's team competed, and the men finished first and swept the top 5 spots, led by Sasha Perrier, Amos Kimoy. I'm sorry if I butcher your name. You're going to have to help me out. Carson Barlow, Blayton Bernard, and Tyler Doty, who took the top 5 spots overall in the entire competition. So big shout out to them. And then for the women, they finished second, but again, silver lining. We took the top overall spot with Charlene Elizondo, who finished first, and then Tiana Kaysen finished third. Macy Livingston finished 8th, and Kate Miller finished 9th. So good little tune-up for them as they get their season going officially next Friday, and that'll be in Huntsville for the Southern Showcase. And finally, we get on to football, which I know myself, I was excited for this game. I'm sure a lot of you guys were, and it was just kind of what I expected, I guess, in a way, where it was just going to be a shootout, and the Jags just could not keep up. Going back to last week, I had my keys to the game for the Jag offense. It was to establish a running game, and we did not execute that at all. I mean, our leading rusher was our quarterback, Gio Lopez, who I believe was 13 for 68. But as far as running backs go, we weren't able to get anything consistent going there, which overall limited our offense and kind of led to us just being a one-dimensional team, which slowed us down as the game kind of went on. But, again, another silver lining for the Jags. Gio Lopez in a loss, but he was able to set the South Alabama passing record for a single game with, I believe, 432, which is a lot. I mean, that's just insane numbers from Gio Lopez. And 197 of them were to his leading target, Jamal Pritchett, who we were able to kind of use in motion to get him a free release, get him going early. And I know there was one play we ran at least twice in the first half and continued to run, where we would kind of motion him in and then behind another receiver, and then he would run a corner and the other receiver would run a post. And North Texas really, really struggled to stop that. And that was able to get us 2 big gains on offense. One of those, I believe, was on a 3rd down, which kept a drive alive, which we ended up scoring on. So big shout out to the offense. They played really well, even though we weren't able to get a running game going. And the defense really just had a lot of problems. Again, going back to last week, I said the key to the game was get off the field on 3rd down. Keep them to 3rd and long, get off the field, don't let their offense get going, because they also have a very high-powered offense. They love to use tempo, and North Texas finished the game 8 for 12 on 3rd down, which a lot of that was because they were able to get to 3rd and short, which made it easier to convert that 3rd down, and we weren't able to get them to enough 3rd and longs as the game went on. And also another big factor was North Texas's use of tempo, where there were a lot of plays, if you watch the first half, where North Texas is snapping the ball and South Alabama's defense isn't even set. We got guys running all over the place. And so it's hard as a defense, to cover a guy when he's already running and you don't even know what the play is, whether you should be guarding him, whether you should be in zone, whether you should be, blitzing, whatever it is. It's hard to get all that going when they're running tempo, they're converting 3rd down, you're not off the field, you're tired, and it feels like everything's moving at once. And our defense it felt like we were on our heels for most of the game, and we're never able to really settle down and get a feel for the speed of the game. And it's tough for your first game playing a team that's that high tempo because it's not something that you can necessarily, simulate in practice unless you're also a high tempo team. And, I'm not saying we're a slow team, but we're not that high tempo. So, the scout team can only do so much. You really got to get used to it as the game goes on, and it felt like we never really did. Now, there were a few, rough penalties on our defense that allowed them to keep some drives alive, maybe get out of a bad situation, but overall we have to do a better job defensively of, matching up with them on the perimeter and just getting off the field on third down. Now, this week we travel to the lovely state of Ohio to play Ohio, the University of, which is a MAC team. They lost last week to Syracuse. They had to play Syracuse on the road. And their quarterback, we're probably going to see a completely different style of offense that we saw from North Texas, where North Texas is trying to air it out and, run a lot of RPOs and go high tempo. Ohio's kind of the opposite. Their running back had over 200 rushing yards last week. Their quarterback only threw for 181, and I believe like 120 of them were to one guy. So I trust our defensive line enough to where we should be able to have a much better defensive outing this week. And, again, I'll give my keys to the game. I would say for the offense, just build off of last week and, where you had success of Gio being able to keep plays alive and scramble, but not scramble to run the ball. Gio's big thing was he was able to scramble and keep his eyes downfield and turn, instead of just scrambling and getting 5 yards and getting out of bounds, he's scrambling and throwing it, 35 yards downfield to a receiver and able to make a big explosive play, which is huge for an offense. But again, establish a consistent ground game because I think that'll allow that passing game to kind of breathe a little easier, not have to, go out and set a school record for passing yards. That's nice and all, but I think a little bit of balance would do us a lot better in the long run. And for the defense, I'm going to repeat the same thing because it lost us last week, is try and force third and long. Get them to passing situations. I mean, they kind of showed last week, they lost, and their quarterback still didn't even throw for 200 yards. Their running back ran for 200. So they're trying to run the ball and control the tempo of the game. So I think if we can force them into passing situations, that'll do numbers for our defense. It'll help us get off the field and get our offense back out there to go, run right through the goalpost again. So I'm going to wrap up with a prediction for the football game. I will say the Jags put up 40+ as they win 42-14 against Ohio. And I think Gio has another huge game. Hopefully our running game, we don't even have to run for 100 yards. I think if we can rush for, 80 yards as a team and not all of that be Gio, I think we can have a big week this week, put up 42, defense, stop the run. That's what we're built for. We have size up front, led by Bubba Thomas, to stop the run. And then I think our secondary, who probably got a lot of work this week in practice, will do much better against a team that doesn't have as many weapons and is not as high tempo. I think that'll be big for us this week. So I have the Jags winning 42-14. And that's all I have for you this episode. Remember, you can reach us through our Instagram if you have any questions or comments about the podcast. Until next time, I'm Richard Brinson. Go Jags.